Wait, for 2 years.
Yeah.
Thing that had taken.
All right, you guys ready? I'm ready. Hey, couple of administrative things here real quick, okay? Just while I was thinking about it, next Wednesday at 11:45, I sent you guys an invite to a meeting with the, her name is Michelle Van. Michelle Van. She is the person in charge of dual credit at Friends University. And so she's going to be in that meeting. And if you want to see how to register for these classes this semester for U.S. History Continued Honors, which will be called U.S. History 2 since 1865, which is how they break it up in college. They go up to through the Civil War and then after the Civil War. This is after the Civil War class. You get 3 credit hours for that. And so that meeting that you've been invited to is next Wednesday at 11:45. Okay. Second thing, I posted an assignment today, this morning. Okay. I was going to hand out books today, but I'm like, yeah, I got a sub tomorrow, and I'm not going to make them do that tomorrow. So the assignment I gave you can look up the information anywhere. Okay. You can Google it. Okay. There are 4 questions worth 5 points each. Now, if it's worth 5 points, then you got to give me some information. Okay, you can't just give me 2 sentences. You're not going to get full credit. Okay, so really, these are what I think are well thought out questions and ones that are relevant to the 1920s and some of the kind of the social side of things that I may not go into as much. So what you will be reading about is interesting, I think. Okay, and so that is not due until next Tuesday night, okay, at midnight. All right. Now, I put it up as a attachment. Okay. So when I do that, I think you have to do it in Canvas. Okay. So it's got a Word file. So you just open that and answer the questions in. Okay. Good. It is optional, but it is 20 points. Okay, so you guys can do it if you choose. All right, I think it's pretty interesting stuff. All right. What else? We need dates. We need dates for your book review. Today is what? January what? 28. Okay.
It's the feast day of St. Thomas Aquinas.
It is.
Yay!
Mr. Bidding probably had a class.
All right, here we go.
Today is also.
Book review. First book review. How's March 2nd sound?
Wait, you said first book review? Okay.
The first book review for you and only book review for you, but your first book review. Your first book review.
Yes.
This is a history book review, not a government book review. Yeah, Shay. I do have a lecture that is recorded on Canvas about the book review.
I just remember you said, like, I think we talked about in this class, and you said you're going to go more into.
I'll go back over it again. But generally, you can look at the syllabus as well. There's a little bit of writing on that. Okay, what I'm looking for. Okay, remember 20th century or 21st century American history, nonfiction or historical fiction. You need to get the book approved by me. Okay. Yes. I am recording. So we're going to go. Thank you. I'm looking at March 2nd. That gives you about a month, a little over a month. Okay. Because I've got to build in time for my 2 timers. Okay. So we're going to go history. It's a Tuesday. History. Okay. March 2nd. Okay. All right, so then I'm gonna do the government book. Government people. Let's go. Are you ready? My government people? Let's go April 15th. How's that?
For the first book review.
For the government book.
Okay.
So you'll have one due on March 2nd, one on April. Do you need more time than that?
April 16th.
Friday? You said-
Actually, Friday's a good day.
Okay, 16th. Government book review. Okay, and then interviews for this class.
Oh my gosh.
Interviews for this class. What's the last day of school? May like 20 something. Yes, it's for you, it's earlier.
The beginning of May.
All right.
Stress about it before school.
Six. Six.
What? Sorry, I'm very excited. That's like. Can we do it?
Six. Let's do what? What? Yes.
Yeah. What's your
There's an AP test on the 6th.
There's an AP test that starts with a 6. Maybe, let's do all of them.
Okay, well, you might want to get your interview done early.
I'm not the one complaining.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I know.
6 is good. We can study and do
You got Wednesday, that whole Wednesday.
I just thought, you know.
Yeah, thank you. I just, yeah. All right, all right, we got dates. We got dates. Okay,
Is there only one project in the
book review for history, this class is due March, no, what do we say?
March 2nd.
March 2nd. March 2nd. Government, April 16th, and interview for this class, history, May 6th. Cool? All right, done. All right, now, back to the notes, all right? So, we've been talking about the Harding administration, all right? And the Harding administration wanted to raise tariffs, cut taxes, okay? They wanted smaller government, and they wanted aid to disabled soldiers and veterans, okay? And so with the wartime, okay, I kind of ended with this the other day. The wealthy tax rate is going to go from 65 to 50%, but eventually by 1924, it's going to go to 25%. All the lower and middle classes will get tax cuts because members of Congress want to get reelected, and there's a lot more of those people than rich people. Okay, so everybody's going to get a tax cut. Mellon didn't want a tax cut for the lower and middle, but too bad. Congress is passing. Okay, so he's achieved two goals. He's achieved higher tariffs and tax cuts. All right, and then for the veterans of World War I, they are going to do what's called the Adjusted Compensation Act. Okay, now there's a nickname for the Adjusted Compensation Act, and the nickname for that is the bonus bill. Okay, what's another name for the Adjusted Compensation Act? The bonus bill. Okay, sometimes the official name of the bonus bill is what? Very good. Okay, now let me show you how this works. Okay, so if you join the military during World War I, all right, and you serve 365 days, 1 year, at, excuse me, you got $1 a day for every day you served at home, domestically. And let's say you served 365 days overseas, you got $1.25 for each day. Now, of course, guys, while you were in the service, you were being paid. This is a bonus, okay, for veterans to help get back on their feet after the war, okay? But this is going to be interesting how this works out. So obviously, the guys, this is, if you serve 3 years, right, or 1 year at home, you got $365 towards your bonus bill, yes? And then if I multiply 125 times 365, I get $456. and some change, okay? I add these together, $821. Okay, now, you don't get this right away. Okay, this is like an insurance policy that will mature over time. You will be able to get this $821 in 1945. It will mature. Okay, but if you were you were in financial trouble as a veteran, you could borrow up to 25% of this. Okay, so if we borrow 25% of this, yeah, that's good on there. You would get about $205. Okay, so let's say you come home from the war, can't find a job, so you borrow against this insurance policy. Can you get into, in 1919, 1920, get into an apartment, buy a new set of clothes to go out and look for a job with $200? Yes. Okay, so veterans could do this. They could cash in part of it. The rest of it wouldn't mature until 1945. Okay, then you could get the rest of your money. Okay, guys, this is the 1920s. The government doesn't have a lot of money. You understand? The government doesn't do much. So they're going to have a hard time writing these checks if they gave them to everybody right now. Okay, you know, they would do something like, I don't know, go into debt, right? Like $27 trillion. You know what I mean? They weren't as fiscally irresponsible back then. All right. So now this is going to come back up. We'll be talking about this again later, because what happens in 1929-30? The Depression starts, right? These veterans are going to want their money during the Depression. They're not going to want to wait till 1940. You understand? So this is going to become a pretty big event down the road here a little bit. Okay, so we'll come back to it. All right. Now, Harding and Coolidge both vetoed this. It was too much, they thought, but Congress, with the 2/3 in both houses, overrode that veto. So this became law. All right, and that's the aid to veterans that we talked about. Good. All right. Now, one of the other major problems coming out of the war was war debts. Okay. Remember, we stayed out of this thing till 1970. Okay, so the Allies had borrowed a lot of money from us. Okay, now I went ahead and made this an infographic to kind of explain it. All right, yeah, this is pretty sweet. All right, now, so the Allies during World War I borrowed the equivalent of $9 billion from the United States. That's a lot of money. Okay. And they owed us $9 billion. Okay, we're talking about Britain, France, Spain, Japan was in there. Yeah.
Was there interest on it?
There may have been. It wasn't much if it was. Okay. If we could get, excuse me, the principal back, that would be good. But as you're going to find out, that's not going to happen. Okay. So the Allies, remember the Treaty of Versailles is going to punish Germany, right? They're going to blame Germany. There's Germany. And they forced Germany to pay massive reparations for the war to the tune of $33 billion. Holy crap. Where is Germany, who's just gotten done with 4 years of war? They lost 2 million men, millions more wounded. Where are they going to come up with 33 billion German marks to pay Britain and France and these other countries? Remember, the United States is not part of this. Okay? We didn't sign the Treaty of Versailles. Okay? So, what happens? Okay? The only way Germany could pay some of this money, I mean, they could print the money, right? And they did. They started printing German marks. But to print 33 billion German marks, they're not going to do that. Okay? So they turned to who? United States. Now, this again is just a nation that we just got out of war with that we're helping. Okay? And this is going to happen after World War II as well. We're going to help these countries that were formerly enemies of the United States. Okay? But, so post-war loans. Now, we're not going to loan Germany $33 billion. We don't have the money to do that either. But we're going to try and help Germany out. Okay? So what money we give to the Germans, who are in rough shape, they're going to pass on to the Allies. And then the Allies are going to take the money that we just gave Germany and give it back to us. But it's not enough to pay off their $9 billion in debt. You follow me here? This is like a merry-go-round of debt. Now, only Finland paid back their debt. Now, as this was going on in the 20s, Hoover actually put a moratorium. He said for 1 year, when the Depression started, Hoover said, look, nobody has to pay their debts to the United States for 1 year. Okay, get your financial houses in order in your country, and then after 1 year, you can start paying us back. Okay, that didn't work. In fact, when the Depression hit, a lot of these countries, these European countries, blamed us for the Depression. Okay, because the stock market was in New York, the one that crashed. That had a rippling effect across the world. Okay, and we insisted that they pay us. I mean, Coolidge said this money. They said, hey, they borrowed the money, right? They should pay it back. Okay. But eventually, most of these loans will be forgiven, okay, over time. Now, one thing I did not realize, guys, until I was teaching this class about 10 years ago, I think it was 2010, I heard a news story that Germany had just made its last installment on this $33 billion to Great Britain in 2010. They paid it back. Okay, it took them, what, 90 years to pay it back. But they paid it. I was blown away by that. I thought for sure, that over, a century, they would have forgiven these debts, especially since, after the war, Germany, after World War II, Germany became an ally of these nations and so forth. Okay. So this is one of the causes of the Great Depression. Okay, so thus far I've given you two causes of the Great Depression. One will be the tariffs. Two will be the war debts. I've mentioned the stock market crash. We're not there yet. That will be a third cause of the Great Depression. Okay, I'm going to give you 6 in total. Okay, but that's 3. All right, and that's obviously something that you're probably going to need to be able to write about on the test. Are causes of the Great Depression. Yes? Yeah. Okay. And you may actually have to be able to explain this on a test. And you may actually have to be able to explain how tariffs clog trade that I did in the last lecture on the test as well. Okay. All right. Now, Harding's death. Okay, I already told you about he had the enlarged heart, right? He was overworking himself, got pneumonia, collapsed, and died. Kind of a touching story coming out of that is, he was in California when he died. And so they brought his body back to D.C. On a train. And all along the railroad tracks, they let the people know when the train would be coming through their communities. And people all across the country went to the railroad where they lived and to pay respects to the president as they brought his body back across the country. Now, who's the vice president? What is that noise? Is that coming from me?
It's coming from the figure.
Okay. Who's the vice president? Okay, at some point, guys, you're gonna have to start remembering stuff in here. Who? Coolidge. Remember Coolidge was the governor of Massachusetts when the Boston police went on strike? And he called in the National Guard, made a name for himself, and Harding said, hey, do you want to be my running mate, run for vice president with me? Okay, so Coolidge is from Massachusetts, right? Now, Coolidge's family is not from Boston. They're from a rural area in Massachusetts. Yes, Massachusetts has rural areas, okay? And guys, back in the 1920s, we really didn't have rural electrification yet. Certainly not in Kansas. In rural Kansas, we didn't have electricity in the 1920s in most places. Same thing in Massachusetts. So Calvin Coolidge, when the president dies, is at the family farm with his father, okay, in Massachusetts. And his mother had passed by then. So in the middle of the night, Coolidge, there's a knock at the farm, at the farmhouse. Knock on the door. It's the telegraph guy. Because that's how, they didn't have telephones yet. Knock on the door, telegraph guy gives him the message, the President of the United States is dead. You need to go to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. Okay? That's how Coolidge found out. But, guys, we were without a president. This is in the middle of the night. He gets this, okay? We're without a president at this point in time. Because Coolidge has to be sworn in. And so, about an hour later, the telegraph delivery guy shows up at the house again, knocking on the door, and says, hey, you need to be sworn in as president. Here's the oath. But in order to be sworn in as president, you need two things. You need a judge, or you need like a notary. You guys know what a notary does? A notary public, they like stamp a document to make it official. Like my wife and I met with our lawyer on Tuesday, and we finally got a will. Okay, we got our will done finally. Okay, and it had to be notarized. You understand? To make it, and you got to have a witness to signing those documents. Well, guys, it's just Coolidge and his dad on the farm. So under the cover of darkness, candlelight, on a family Bible, Coolidge's father is a notary. He's a justice of the peace. So his father will swear him in as president of the United States on the family farm, on a family Bible, and the witness will be the telegraph delivery guy. That's how Coolidge becomes president. That's a good story, right? Okay. Kind of like when JFK was assassinated, okay? Lyndon Baines Johnson was sworn in. He's the only president to be sworn in on Air Force One. Okay? That he was sworn in immediately after they pronounced Kennedy dead. Okay?
Why would they do it so fast?
The President of the United States in 1960s controlled the nuclear codes. We were in the Cold War. You better get that done. Okay. So with Coolidge, it just had to be done. You can't like wait a week where you don't have a president. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why, guys, we have the 25th Amendment, okay, which is the presidential succession, right? And the Presidential Succession Act of 1947 that really reorganizes the chain of leadership, ascension to the presidency. Okay, so yeah, those are important things, and that's kind of cool how Coolidge became president. Now, Coolidge, they had a nickname for him, Silent Cow. All right, Silent Cow. He didn't like to talk. Okay. Which is, there's some irony here because he's the first president to really have his voice recorded and on like with a video, like a camera, okay, a camera recording of his voice. He's the first president, Coolidge. One guy said, we saw Coolidge one day and he opened his mouth to talk and moths flew out because he never talked. All right. Tomorrow, guys, in this class, you guys at home, they're going to be watching a video. Okay, it's called The Century, Boom to Bust, 1920 to 1929. This they did in the year 2000 when the century was over, and CBS and History Channel put together videos for each decade, or sometimes 2 in each decade, okay? And this one goes to 2029. It's very well done. And because of the motion and sound camera, picture camera, you'll get to see like live footage, real footage from the 1920s. You'll hear the music, the dances, and see the dances and the sporting events and so forth, some of the things that I may get to today, okay? So enjoy that video. You can watch it over the weekend. I sent a link this morning out for this video because you guys won't be in class, okay? But it is worth the 45 minutes watching because it does help reinforce some of the things I'm talking about in these notes, okay? So there's your war deaths, okay, and the death of Harding. All right, so yeah, let's keep it cool with Coolidge here. Silent Cow, all right? So this is where we get into the jazz age, all right? This is the fun stuff, all right? The 20s we saw, I mean, obviously, guys, we are in an industrial age here. And you remember studying interchangeable parts last year, yes? And then we get to interchangeable parts and then the assembly line. The factories, what these guys studied last year when they started building factories, those factories were powered by what? Steam first, right? And then coal, right? Now we're going to have electrified power plants or factories, electrified. Okay, so it makes it much more efficient, cleaner too, as well. Okay, and with the assembly line interchangeable parts, holy crap, we are going to start producing so many goods. There's new inventions, and those new inventions will be mass produced and affordable to the masses. Okay, this is an exciting time to be alive. And if you just look at the automobile, okay, the automobile will become mass produced. So by 1918, there were 7 million cars on the road and in the United States. Now, the roads in 1918 were not very good, right? But as more and more cars are built, so we built 2 million cars just in the year of 22, 5 million cars rolled off the assembly line in 29. So you can see by the end of the decade, we're going to have, probably 20 million cars on the road in America, okay? So because there's so many, we're going to have to build better roads. But the automobile is going to change this country like few things have ever changed it before. You no longer have to live in the city to work in the city, right? So you can drive into town. Now we're going to need to build bridges too, because this country has a ton of rivers, okay? Kansas, I don't know if you know, this little trivia here for you. Kansas is in the top 10% of all states when it comes to the number of bridges. Kansas has a lot of bridges, okay? You think, man, top 10? Yeah, we got a lot of bridges, and a lot of them are old. Yeah. I would say top 10 states, maybe top 10 states. You can look it up.
What cities have the biggest?
Huh?
What cities have the most?
Which cities? I'd say like Baton Rouge, Louisiana has a lot of bridges. But if you look at New York, what is that? Wasn't there a movie on this, 21 Bridges or something recently? 21 Bridges? I think I watched that.
How do you go?
So, and they have tunnels and stuff there. But anyhow, okay. Now, guys, just let's talk about the automobile a little more. Okay. Now, obviously, if you live in New York City today, it's not really necessary to have a car, right? If you live in New York City, a lot of people don't have cars because they can take public transportation, right? They have, the subway. If you live in Kansas, you kind of want to have a car, right? Now, we have a love affair with the automobile in this country. And if you go back through the 20th century, okay, different time periods, you get different types of cars, right? Back here, you got your Model T and your Model A. And then from there, you get into the 30s, guys, you start to get nicer cars, right? And you got all these different companies. It didn't just start with Ford, okay? You had Ford and Packard, and Chrysler, and there's dozens of these that went out of business, you understand, throughout time. You guys have heard of the Studebaker? Okay, there's all kinds. And we get these big cars, right? You get to the 60s, they start building these fast cars, right? The muscle cars, your Ford Mustang, your Corvette, okay? The Thunderbird, which was still pretty big, the T-Bird, okay? And then you get to the late 60s, the Camaro, they start souping these puppies up, you know what I mean? And we go through the muscle car era. Then you get to the 70s and they start building these huge, like, gigantic Cadillacs and Lincoln Continentals, okay? My first car, 1977 Lincoln Continental, 2-door, yellow with a white top. It had a 460 horsepower engine in it, V8. The engine was massive, okay? And you just like, it's like floating, man. And that Lincoln is huge. They don't make any cars that big anymore. There's no production of a car that big today, okay? I love that car. My dad got it from grandma, you know, and I blew the transmission after about 6 years. Any you guys into cars? We got any like muscle? What do we call them? Muscle heads? What do we call them? Motorheads? Yeah, you like? Yeah, what you got, Sam?
No, I was actually wondering how big is the car? Like how? What do you mean by big? Do you mean like the engine block is huge?
The engine was huge, and the length of the car
Oh.
is long. And when you get a 2-door, you know the doors on that Lincoln are like 6 feet long. Swing open, you know, heavy. I fit 13 people in that once. We took the Cologne to the Yellow Submarine. Yeah, you guys know the Beatles, right? I had this girlfriend in high school, Maureen. I might have told you guys.
You told me
Yeah.
about Maureen.
Yeah, so she was really small, you know, not as small as Cindy, but she was really small. And this Lincoln is wide, you know, and so she's sitting over there, I'm over here, it's like, she's like way over there, you know what I mean? I just remember, look, man, you look small in this car. But it was a good one. And guys, do you remember the first time you got in your car without a parent and you drove off from home? Hail Mary. Yes.
Can I tell you my first time I drove over?
Tell me you didn't get in a wreck.
No.
Okay.
I'm still on a permit, but my mom needed me to go somewhere for her, like, we're for the election office. And
Okay.
she's like, we need to go to the warehouse. And it was dark. First time I drove by myself, and she's like, drive my car. And I was like, Mom, if I get into a wreck, this is your fault. I'm on a permit, and guess where the warehouse is right next to? The sheriff's Phillips.
Oh, nice.
And the sheriff's, like where they keep all the evidence.
Okay.
And I was so, oh my gosh, when I like turned down the street, I was like, Mom, why did you make me go down here? There's all these like, there's so many police officers.
Oh my
Thanks,
gosh.
Mom.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they didn't catch you.
No,
Good.
I'm good.
I have the opposite of that. My parents are very, very paranoid and like overprotective
Yes.
of me driving. I had my driver's license for a whole year.
Before you went
they
out
let
on your
me
own.
Drive by myself.
Yeah.
I had full license for a
You know what we call
full
those
year.
parents?
Helicopter.
Or umbrella.
At the same time, they let me go to Germany by myself.
Yeah.
But I can't drive the car by myself. I'm still not allowed to drive on highways.
I think the highways are probably safe, but
No,
they're safe.
The
Yeah.
highways literally cannot not speed.
Yeah.
Because people are going like,
Oh, I know.
the speed limit
Yeah.
is 60.
And
At minimum,
65.
people are going
65,
65.
Well, yeah, you stay in the right lane and you cruise in the, yeah, you stay in the right lane.
I just got
Oh, no, I'm in the left.
Oh, no, I know. Yeah. Now, listen, you guys heard of defensive driving? Okay, here's my theory on driving.
Drive to a right.
If I'm driving faster than everybody on the highway, I only have to worry about what's in front of me, not what's behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes out half the, you know. you know, half the fear or half the threat.
But like,
Okay.
imagine if you had a wreck, you're going at a faster speed, you're gonna have more damage. You know what? But
Just
I
don't
am.
get
Yeah, don't get in a wreck.
Like, I feel like I'm baffled by how many road ragers we have. because,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
scary. You gotta be careful.
I'll pass someone and they start revving their engine and they'll come up, grab me and like, look me dead in the eye, get me in the dirt, and then pass me again, and I'm
Yeah.
like, game on.
Well, that was a can of worms. Okay.
Why doesn't one like drive to arrive line? And I lived by that. I drive to
All right,
Arrive
continue
Line.
this on Snapchat later. Okay. New invention, yes. 1920s vote toaster. All right. Motion, sound pictures, radio, phonograph, refrigerator, iron, toaster, washing machine, vacuum cleaner. All of these things will be invented and then they will be mass produced. Now, guys, do you know what a phonograph is?
Yes.
It's that like thing that plays.
It has the big thing. It plays like music.
It's a record player. Yes. 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 Now, what's cool about these record players is that, I'll show you one. Let me show you, go to the next slide real quick. This is a phonograph, okay? And it's vinyl, okay? So the record itself is vinyl, all right? They sold vinyls that you could record on these phonographs. Do you remember the first time you like created a voicemail and then you listened to yourself on recording?
That was.
Okay, you're like, man, that sounds funny, right? Well, this was the first time people had ever heard their voices recorded. You know what I mean? So this is pretty neat. And you can buy the album of your favorite artist. Okay? You had to crank the thing and get it the right speed. Sometimes it played a little too fast. Okay, so back when I was growing up, I had albums and 45s. So the 45 is the small record, okay, and it spins a little bit faster. The 33 is the big album, okay, and it spins a little slower. Okay. Any of you guys have a record player at home today? Okay. And it's probably some of your parents have album collections. Okay, I have a bunch of old albums. Okay, and we break them out. Lily likes to play them. I got Beatles, Kiss. You guys heard of Kiss? Kiss Alive, it's a great album. I mean, between my wife and I think we have about 80 albums. Okay, mostly from the 60s, 70s, 80s.
Where do you
We have a box that they lay flat in. Sometimes they get warped, sometimes they get scratched. Okay, the sound quality is not near as good as digital sound today. Okay, but the phonograph is a great invention. I mean, it's just fabulous. Okay, the radio is expensive at first. Okay, so a lot of the early radios would come about this big in a big cabinet. Okay, and the first TVs did too. They came in big cabinets. All right, but then they slowly shrunk down, to the size of this big and stuff like that. But guys, this is going to make us. You guys know what homogeny is? Homogeneous. Okay, because there's only like 2 radio stations. So every American is hearing the same thing. You know what I mean? It makes us, as a people, it makes us homogeneous. Today, guys, we have information from all over the place, right? It's crazy, okay? There's good on that because you have diversity of thought. You have diversity of music. You have diversity of all different sources of things, programming. But it makes us less homogeneous as the American people, okay? Oh my gosh, the refrigerator. Can you imagine living without one of these? What did people do before?
I wouldn't like that.
How did people keep stuff cold?
I see that as well.
Okay, they did. They dig a hole in the ground. Okay, we call that a cellar. Okay, they would dig a cellar. Now, where are you gonna get the ice though? So like, if you live in the South, what do they like to drink at the South?
tea.
What kind of tea?
Iced tea.
Iced tea, but it is sweet. They don't even ask you in the South. Everything's sweet. Okay? I grew up in the South and I did not like tea and I did not like grits. Okay? But grits are disgusting. Okay.
Are you sure you're from Florida?
Huh?
Are you sure you're from the
I know. Well, I'm a transplant.
South?
Carpetbagger, if you will. Now, you're in Hotlanta, Georgia, 1900. You're going to have Southern hospitality. You guys heard of Southern hospitality? That is a real thing. You understand? The South. Man, let me tell you something. If you guys have not been to the South, people are so nice. When you walk down the street, they look at you in the eye and they say hello. You go to New York City, you start looking somebody in the eye and like, what are you looking at? That's fine, okay? Now, if you come to the Midwest, like Kansas, Wichita. So when I moved here from the South, I'm pulling into my neighborhood. I'm driving my car. There's people walking on the sidewalk. I'm driving slow. It's a neighborhood. I wave at the people on the sidewalk because that's what you do. And they didn't even look at me. And I'm like, what's wrong with these people? Okay.
Yeah,
people are fine.
They wave at you?
Yeah, West Side.
Okay.
Well,
Now, this last 6 months, I'm a walker, and I walk, and so I'm always waving to everybody, and they know me. Everybody knows me because I'm walking every day. Everybody knows me. Yeah.
I think the waving thing also happens more in the Northwest.
In the Northwest, maybe. I don't know. I've never lived there, but yeah, in the country around here, you like when you're on a country road around here, people will wave at you, right? Which I like, But guys,
Coach, I hate to interrupt
Yes.
you, Brett, but it's because you live on the east side.
Yeah.
you may be on the side.
The east side's not, I don't know what's wrong with them over there, but it's the east side. If you lived over here, you walk around there, people wave.
People wave at you.
wave
Okay.
at you. You can't swing a dead cat without somebody waving at you on this
Good,
side of town, right?
good.
You run around, people honk and wave and say hi. And,
Sometimes when you don't really want it.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I walk around my neighborhood. Now then, sometimes if you walk in front of Bishop Carroll or we're jogging in front of Bishop Carroll, people, they give you that wave you don't always want, the one finger wave, and they scream Northwest is best or something, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, I just say hi, thanks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
That's
think it's an east side thing, I'm just saying,
It's
sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no, I get it. I definitely get it. I understand the two cultures on one side of the river and the other side of the river. And I like the west side more. I do live on the east side.
Everybody
I
likes
apologize, but no, I mean, yeah.
Yeah,
You-
East side is where you go. West side's where you go. West side's where the family lives.
So before we run out of time, let me just talk about this. The toaster, you would flip this up, put your bread in there, flip that up, put your bread in there, and we'll toast it. That's a 1920s toaster. And then I have a couple graphs. This is kind of self-explanatory. I'm reading a book right now, and they were describing diphtheria. Oh my gosh, you do not want to get diphtheria. It attacks the throat, the esophagus. And I was reading about POW camps in the Philippines for American prisoners of war during World War II. And they get all this mucus in there, and it clogs up your throat, swells up, and you suffocate. Okay, it's horrible. That we brought under control. Typhoid fever, we brought under control. Measles, we brought under control. So guys, life expectancy is going to rise during the 1920s a lot. Okay, so to see here, 1920 to 1930, we're going to add like 4 years to the, and you can see this throughout the centuries. Okay, all right, I'll pick up from there. You guys, tomorrow there's going to be a video, so no video, just watch the video, the century video, okay? And I will see you guys back here on Monday, okay? And don't forget about that homework assignment if you want some points. Have a good weekend. Peace. Have a good one.